Hi, everyone. This is Andy from the Million Cat Challenge team. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join this webinar. We're lucky today to have with us Maria Benham and Amy Heinrich of the Dubuque Regional Humane Society. They'll be telling us how to save lives through low and no-fee cat adoptions. Before we begin, we would like to thank Maddie's Fund for hosting this webinar and for making the Million Cat Challenge possible through their generosity. One other little bit of housekeeping. We are scheduled to go for an hour. We're reserving the last 15 minutes or so for Amy and Maria to answer questions. You can submit questions as they arise during the webinar using the Q&A box that's in the left-hand column. So please send us questions as they occur to you, since we may not have time to answer questions asked at the last minute. If something comes up that you'd like to ask about, go ahead and type it in right away and we'll queue it up. And now I'd like to hand it off to Correct Shelter Medicine Program Outreach Veterinarian, Dr. Cindy Karsten, who will introduce today's presenters.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Andy. I am just so very honored to be introducing these two incredible ladies who work at the Dubuque Regional Humane Society. I first had the pleasure of meeting Amy back in Chicago in September of 2014 at the Pet Point Summit. Amy is the Director of Operations and has been with the Dubuque Regional Humane Society since 2008. Amy sat through not just one, but two sessions with me to go over her data to see how their shelter could change their operations to improve both human or animal welfare and their outcomes, as well as the human welfare in her shelter as well. So we stayed in touch, and then in February of 2015, I was back in the Midwest doing some work, and I took an afternoon to drive down to Dubuque so I could tour their shelter, and I got to meet Maria, their president and CEO. Maria has been with the Humane Society in this role since October of 2013, which was just over a year at the time that I met her. And this was Maria's first venture into animal sheltering, but she brought with her years of experience leading nonprofit organizations. So with just a little bit of input and a few recommendations from us, these two women have done a truly impressive job of changing the culture in their shelter and their whole community. So they've truly blown us away with what they've been able to accomplish, and I'm so excited that they get to be here today to share their story with you all. So with that, take it away, ladies.
Thank you, Dr. Karsten. This is Maria Benham. Hello, it's great to be with everyone today. We are going to be sharing the story of our little shelter that could and did, and hopefully serve as some inspiration to all of the other shelters who are facing some of the challenges that we did. To start out, I want to tell you a little bit about our shelter. We are located in Dubuque, Iowa. We're in eastern Iowa and serve an area that also includes parts of Wisconsin and Illinois. The city of Dubuque has a population of about 60,000 people, but most of the geographic area we serve is rural. So the primary population is 60,000, give or take a few. We admit around 2,500 and 3,000 animals each year. Half of them are cats. The others are local and transport dogs, and we also take in and adopt out non-traditional pets. A little bit of our story. In 2014, our shelter did a poor job of meeting our mission and getting animals into homes. That year, we euthanized over 50% of all of the cats that were admitted. Of those cats that were fixed, vaccinated, put up for adoption, 22% were euthanized after being on the adoption floor. 111 of those were healthy cats that we just didn't have space for, and 149 cats had developed medical issues while waiting for adoption. Most of those probably could have been treated, but again, we had space issues and a lack of other resources. We ended that year with a 61% live release rate. The worst part of that entire year was that wasn't unusual for our organization. For years, our leadership was reluctant to change and stood by the old adage, that's how we've always done it. The good thing is that both Amy and I were new to our positions at the DRHS. As Dr. Carson shared, I was a little over a year into the CEO position. My predecessor was here for over 20 years, and so that added to the that's how we've always done it attitude, no offense to anyone at all. And Amy had been here for several years, but was just recently, end of 2013, early 2014, was promoted to the Director of Operations position. Amy and I recognized that we needed to change. We needed to do better for our animals, and we needed to do better for our community. So we made some changes that we'll talk about. And in 2015, we decreased cat euthanasia by 82%. We had 0 euthanasias due to space, and we also saved over $100,000 in direct costs associated with cat care. So we had some pretty significant results in what we did. We made a lot of changes moving into 2015, including starting surrender by appointment. But we believe the change that had the most impact on how we serve animals was making a permanent decrease in our cat adoption fees. We were launching into unknown territory. It was admittingly a little scary, but we were also confident that the key was to shorten our length of stay and increase adoptions. To us, lowering the adoption fees made sense. At that time, in 2014, our adoption fees were $110 for a kitten under 1 year of age and $75 for cats that were 1 year and older. Before we move on, I would like to do a little pulse check and ask all of the listeners if you have considered lowering your cat adoption fees, but for one reason or another have been reluctant to do so, or maybe like us, even scared to do so. So if everyone could just click on a green or a red thumb. The results are coming in. I'll close this now. But over 50% of you did say that, yes, you have considered lowering your cat adoption fees, but it was just maybe a little too scary or you were reluctant to do so. We are going to talk about the benefits of doing it, how we received approval from the Board of Directors, how we addressed the concerns of the community, and what we've done since 2015 because of the success we've had. So the first step that we had to do was to get approval from our board. Of course, changing our adoption fees required a policy change, and it had to go to the board. I'm sure, as with all of the organizations listening, our board is very concerned about our mission, but they are the ultimate financial oversight of our organization. And their job is primarily to ensure that we can sustain our operations and our organization into the future. So they, fortunately, look at the dollar signs on pretty much everything. For our board, when I started to talk about lower adoption fees, they immediately thought that's going to lower our revenue. And they were very reluctant to want to change that because it just makes sense. We're not going to have as much income to take care of all of our animals. I knew that what I needed to do was to show our board of directors the money. I had to make them understand that this would be a financial benefit to our organization. So this slide is what I took to them. This is for the year 2014. We had over 1,000 cats that were made available for adoption. And as I've shared, 260 of those were euthanized after being put up for adoption. At that point in time, our average length of stay for the cats that were adopted was 22 days. So I figured out the average cost per adopted cat. This does not include salaries for administration, for adoption staff. What I did was I looked at how much time it took for us to provide food, water, and cleaning for one cat one day. And it came out to be about $10. So for staff time, for the solutions that we use, $10 a day cares for one cat. And I took that, added our costs of spay neutering as well as vaccinations, and came out that it cost us, with our 22-day length of stay, $336 per cat that ends up being adopted. With a shorter length of stay, the cost of caring for a cat that ended up going up for adoption and then euthanized was a little bit lower, but at the end of the year, it was almost $250,000 for us to care for all of the cats that we adopted. So it doesn't include the ones that were not adopted that year. And what really had impact on our board of directors was when I shared with them that the cost of care for those adoptable cats that were later euthanized was over $75,000. The income that we received from our cat adoptions was less than $60,000. So I told them, if we can eliminate the cost to care for the cats that we ended up euthanizing, and if we could, even with a lower adoption fee, that we would end up further ahead in the long run. So what we did, the board said, yes, you can go ahead, we can try this, but we want to see a report in 6 months, a report in 12 months to see how we're actually saving money. And they allowed us to lower our adoption fees permanently, but could have promotions as we need them. So we could go even lower as we needed them. So what we did was we lowered our adoption fees for kittens, and we changed the age to under 6 months to $50, and then cats that are 6 months and older would be $25. For the majority of the year, we did do promotions. So we had $5 felines, $10 adoptions. We even had weeks and weekends where we had no adoption fee at all for our cats. So after a year of this, the exciting part is to show the results of all of our work. And you will see 2014 in comparison with 2015. So we had, again, nearly 1,000 cats available for adoption. And of those, 18 were made available for adoption, then euthanized. And those cats developed illnesses that we were not able to treat successfully. 0 were euthanized for space, and most of those that did become sick were able to be treated. We shortened our length of stay by nearly a week, so we went down to a 16-day length of stay from the day the cat's admitted to the day it's adopted. And you'll see that by taking off that $10 per cat per day, that our costs per cat decreased significantly. Going down you'll see that the cost of care for all of our adopted cats was lower than $200,000. And I apologize, but I do need to make a correction where it says cost of care for all available cats in 2015 was actually under $200,000. So it was about $196,000. I apologize for the typo. But we obviously saved a significant amount of money, over $100,000 in the cost that we put into taking care of our cats every day. And it was really because the low adoption fees brought more people in, they were adopted faster, and we shortened that length of stay. So, obviously, our board of directors was very pleased with the results. We still had to work on the community and some of the concerns of the community, which, of course, are very valid. First of all, we looked at, we had to consider, does having a low or no fee cat adoption decrease the value of a cat? Of course, all of us in this industry know that no, it does not decrease the value of the cat. And we try to communicate as much as we could to the community that that's not the case. One thing that supported that is that after doing the low fee adoptions, we did not have an increase in our return rate, and we did not have an increase in strays that were adopted from us being brought in. And so these cats were going to homes that wanted to keep them. Another community concern was that with low adoption fees, anybody could and would adopt a cat. One of the things that we ensured that we kept was that all of our adopters go through the same application and adoption process as at any other time or for any other animal. And so even though we decreased adoption fees, we did not change the process. People who want to adopt a cat to abuse, to harm, things of that nature are not very likely to come to a humane society, provide all of their information, and have their names on our records. And so we really didn't feel as though that was that much of an issue, and the community seemed to understand that as well. The biggest concern that we had heard was that if people can't afford a higher adoption fee, they can't afford to care for their cat. Again, all of our adopters go through the same process. We ask potential adopters to spend time with the cat to make sure that they find a good fit, and we discuss the ongoing care and costs related to pet ownership. But what we figure is that we just have to trust that people are good and that they will make a good choice for themselves and their family. We feel as if we weren't able to judge whether this is a good home or not. We just had to trust them and trust that they were going to provide adequate care for their cat. And associated with all of these is that we figure a person can get a free cat any day of the year off the internet. At least ours are spayed or neutered and vaccinated. And so I would much rather have somebody get a cat from us than get a free cat off Craigslist. When we looked at the concerns or addressed the concerns that the community had, we really didn't have very many complaints. And after explaining where we were coming from, people really understood. We definitely had more positive feedback than negative feedback. And so that was really great. The community responded really well. So now we'll go into the benefits. And before before we move on to this, I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, please enter them early so that they can get into the queue and be addressed before we have to end the webcast. The benefits of lowering our cat adoption fees. Obviously, we save more lives. Our cat adoption rate increased by 40%, and even though we admitted fewer cats, we had more being adopted. Not only our cats, but our dogs also benefited from the lower cat adoption fees and lower length of stay. We cut our costs for cat care, but we didn't just use that to make our financials look good. We used those resources, the time, energy, and financials, to provide the increased treatment that we needed for our animals that were sick. We may have been able to provide extended care for our younger animals that came in, or provide more time and TLC to other animals that needed special care. So we were able to redirect those resources into all of our animals and provide them care that they deserved, when before we didn't have the resources to do that. And so everybody was able to benefit from this change. We decreased our medication and treatment use by 42% and had a 49% decrease in cats that died in our care. Again, the great thing is that we decreased cat euthanasia by 82%, and we ended the year with a 92% live release rate on our cats and dogs. As a reminder, the year prior it was 61%. So we were really, really thrilled with that. Another benefit that isn't on the slide is that we actually have been able to help out other shelters and other cats by transferring cats into our facility for adoption. So that was pretty cool, because usually people are trying to transport them out. We were really pleased to be able to do that. Some of the other benefits that we found in 2015 was that we had considerably improved morale and lower turnover among our staff. After the changes were made, a lot of our staff had smiles on their faces. They said that they were much happier to work there, and it wasn't so sad because we weren't euthanizing every day. It improved our reputation and our relationships in the community. So we've been able to not only adopt out more animals, but we've been able to make more friends in the community and change some of the negative perception that we had. We've been able to develop partnerships for funding and education, both regionally and nationally, Million Cat Challenge being one of them. We've been able to tap into other resources to learn how we can be better and take care of our animals better. And like today, we've been able to share some of our success as well. In 2015, we also increased our donations. And so we had a great cost savings, but we also received an increased number of donations, and the average size of our donations increased by about $40. And so we also had more income on the contributions end because of what we were doing. And lastly, we were able to show the community that we were good stewards of their support, and we were using their generosity effectively and efficiently. And we weren't just taking care of cats and dogs, but we were actually working harder to get them adopted and into great homes. There was one negative consequence of us decreasing our cat adoption fees, and that is because we were increasing our adoptions, our cremation vendor lost a lot of business. And it's funny, but it's true. with the decrease in euthanasia, they were not even having to come every week to pick up animals to cremate. So that was really one negative for them, but a positive for us. With all of the success that we saw in 2015, we knew that we needed to continue this. We knew that we were onto something that was great for our animals, great for our community and the people in our community, for our staff and everyone. And what we've done is that, again, our board said that we could permanently decrease our cat adoption fees except for when we need a promotion. So we figured we need to have a special promotion throughout the year. And so we, through 2016 and currently, adopt out our cats by donation. And so adopters can choose how much they would like to contribute to adopt a cat. Sometimes it's $1, sometimes it's $50. But that way we are able to continue to have a short length of stay and get our cats into homes. The only time we do not have a promotion is when we do not have any cats available for adoption in our facility, and we do have those days. The shorter length of stay has allowed us to operate within our capacity for care and has allowed us to just work better throughout the entire shelter. So it's been so amazing for us that we are continuing to do it for this day, and we are continuing to see all of the benefits that we've had before. I want to leave a lot of time for questions and answers, and so hopefully everybody is submitting your questions because we would love to answer those. Before we get into that, I do want to point out on this last slide, please feel free to contact myself or Amy if you have any questions. We would love to be able to answer those. You can contact both of us, one of us, whatever works for you. And then also, we have created a shorter video, a Maddie Talk for Maddie's Fund that you can check out online, share it with your board members or anyone else you would like to. It's just a briefer version of what we've done, but hopefully that can help your shelter have some impact as well. And so lastly, I would like to open it up to questions.
Okay, let's see. Our first question up here is, what has the shelter staff feedback been about both the change in adoption fee and the results?
Our staff has been absolutely thrilled. The emotions can be up or down any given day. And so when they see the cats being adopted as opposed to being taken out of the back door of the shelter, they are so much happier. A lot of our staff said, why couldn't we do this sooner? And so they really felt good that their time wasn't wasted. They were happy that their hard work was resulting in animals going into homes, and they were a little nervous as well about the adoption fee change, but it has turned out to be really good for them as well. The questions or concerns that were brought to them were very easy for everyone to address, and so when I say that it's improved the morale throughout all of our staff, it truly has. And everyone is proud to work here. I hate to say it, but I think I can say that sometimes people weren't proud to work here because we weren't doing everything that we could from our staff's point of view. now we are. And so they're very proud to work here, and they feel that their work is truly worth it and truly valued.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, how much pushback did you get from your board, staff, and community when you presented your proposals to each? And were there any questions or concerns you hadn't anticipated?
We didn't receive a whole lot of pushback from the community. We kind of just changed the adoption fees and promoted it heavily, and again, we had the few concerns brought to us that we were able to address satisfactorily. Staff were a little nervous, but nobody questioned it. Nobody pushed back. They fortunately were willing to change and willing to try something new. The greatest amount of pushback was from our board of directors. I took not only the financial numbers to them, but I provided resources from a lot of different organizations that were promoting lower cat adoption fees, and I had to take some anecdotal information to them, and it did take some time. It wasn't just a one board meeting discussion. I had to present it to them, give them time to chew on it, provide more resources, give them more time to think about it. And so that was a challenge. But fortunately, in talking to the board, not only was the financial impact important to them, the reputation of our organization was really important. And with me being a newbie to the organization, we were drawing a little bit more attention than maybe we would normally. And so I gave that to the board as well and said that if we don't try something, we're going to continue to damage our reputation, and we could lose even more than what we are now. And so I played a little bit of hardball while still trying to provide the board what they needed. And again, it took time, and fortunately worked. There weren't really any questions or concerns we hadn't anticipated. The hardest thing for everybody was that change is scary. Everybody was in their comfort zone, and even though we didn't like it, we knew what to expect. And so taking people out of that was difficult. We needed to take the scariness out. We needed to take the unknown out. And so we said, if we try this and it doesn't work out, we can always go back. But now is the time to go forward.
Right. Okay, we have a couple of questions about finances. Curious if your costs rose in other areas, i.e. medical and or behavior, or was this a savings straight across the board?
Our costs did rise in our medical area, and that is because with the savings that we had in taking care of taking care of our cats for a shorter time per cat, we redirected those resources to the treatment we were providing to other animals, whether it was a cat, dog, guinea pig, or snake. And so we were able to do things for the other animals that we didn't have the funding to do prior. So our budget still came out, our expenses came out to be pretty much the same as they are every year. But yes, there was an increase in the medical area. It was mainly with staff time that we were spending on providing extra treatment and things of that nature.
Okay, we have a couple of donation questions. What is the average donation amount given when someone adopts by donation only?
The average donation amount is approximately $25, $24 to $25. The year prior, when we had in 2014, when we had the higher adoption fees, it was higher, but it was $36 in 2015 when we had the 2550. 2016, it was $25, and that's around where we are now.
Okay, and you're soliciting donations right at the point of adoption. Do you have specific messaging that everyone uses at the front desk?
When somebody is adopting a cat, essentially, we, just ask them, it is a donation only. Would you like to leave a donation for the adoption of this cat? We inform them that any fees that we may charge for an adoption will never cover the expense of the animal while they're in our care. And when we provide them with that information, they tend to be a little more open about the amount that they leave. So that's kind of the wording that we use.
And
okay.
Also, I'm sorry. One of the things I also noticed is that, and I don't have hard and fast numbers right now, but our adopters also receive our quarterly newsletter, and they're able to opt out, but we also send them an electronic newsletter. And our first-time donations from adopters is greater in number than it was in the past. And so we may not see it at the time of adoption, but I feel as if those adopters are more likely to give to us later on.
Right. And how much is the dog adoption fee, and do you ever run specials on dogs?
Our dog adoption fee average fee is $140. And we, on very young puppies, we will go up to $200. We run specials on dogs frequently. If they're a senior dog, we will run them at like $5, $10, $25. If there are some special needs, medical or behavior, we will also run those at a significantly reduced price.
Okay. Another question just came in. Why do you think the reduced fee resulted in more or quicker adoptions? Don't you think that if the adopter doesn't want to pay higher adoption fee, they won't want to fee for vet fees later?
Do we have a right to assume what somebody else might do down the road? If a cat or a dog has no adoption fee or very low adoption fee, it doesn't take away that value of their pet. The cost of the animal doesn't equal love or care or affection.
And I think for the first part of the question goes to two things. First of all, you can frequently, any day of the week, in our area at least, you can get a free cat off the internet, whether it's Facebook, garage sale, ad in the newspaper, Craigslist, what have you. And, of course, if somebody has the option of paying $0 or $5, they'll do that instead of paying $50. I also think that it's led in quicker adoptions because it's a promotion. It's just like having a weekend promotion, 365 days of the year, but they see that as, woohoo! There's a sale going on, and so I think it just makes people more interested and more likely to come into the shelter.
The ASPCA also does have a study on the correlation of adoption fees versus the care and compassion that the adopters have and what they will invest down the road in their animal.
And maybe we'll make sure a link to that is available on the Million Cat Challenge website with this archived webinar.
And I will add again that we have not had an increase in returns after doing this, and so people are embracing the value of having that new family member in their home. We have not seen an increase in the number of strays that were adopted from us coming in, and so I think that also adds to the fact that the animals are being loved, they are being cared for. We can never guarantee at any point in time if that pet is being taken to the vet on a regular basis, continues to be up to date on vaccinations, et cetera. But we do receive word from clinics when they see cats and dogs that have been adopted from us, and we can't guarantee it at any adoption fee. But we do, again, just feel like we need to trust people when they come to adopt and trust that they can do what's right by their pet.
Right. Okay. Here's another question. You touched on this earlier, but it probably bears maybe a little more detail. Have you found fundraising / donor engagement has been easier with your new stats?
Absolutely. We have been able to increase the number of our donors as well as the size of our donations because of what we have done with getting more cats and dogs adopted. So it's definitely been easier for us. We've had a wonderful, warm story to share, and that's why people invest in our mission, is to see pets and people united as a family. And we've only been able to do more of that over the past couple of years. And so from a marketing and community engagement perspective, it's definitely improved, and on the fundraising end, it has much improved and is making it a lot easier for us to be able to see donors, get into new donors, and increase the amount of donations that we receive. Because of a lot of the things that we've done, also, we have been able to receive donations for even more for our cats. And Dr. Karsten, you'll be happy to hear that we were able to get a specific donation to get portals to go between our cat holding cages. So one cage is now 2, and the bathroom can be separate from the kitchen. And we've been able to also receive some other donations that have provided more benefit to our cats. And those we probably wouldn't have received if we couldn't show to that specific donor that we were trying very hard to get more cats adopted and that we were willing to take great steps in doing that. And because we were, and there was statistics and proof to back it up, she wanted to do even more.
That's great. Okay. Let's change the subject a little bit. Do you conduct a follow-up with the adopters to check on how the cat is doing, if the family still owns the cat, and if they are receiving vet care? I'm wondering if that may answer some of the previous questions.
Currently, we do not do follow-up phone calls with adopters. It's one of the things that we are wanting to expand upon as resources become available. So, not yet.
There are times, of course, that we do get phone calls or concerns brought to us post-adoption. Usually it comes when there's a medical concern, and those have decreased for us as well. And I don't think it necessarily correlates to the adoption fee, but we're getting more animals, more cats adopted, and it's not resulting in more issues that come to us after the fact.
Okay, well, related to that is the question that just popped up there. Are all the cats you adopt out completely healthy, or might they need a dental or ear yeast infection or something like that?
We adopt out, obviously, healthy cats. However, if we do have a cat that may have like a chronic medical condition or an older cat that needs a dental, or maybe they even have a bite history, depending on what the situation was. We have a program in place. It's called the FAIR program. Stands for Friends Achieving Incredible Results. But they have a label on with their cage card, and it just, it encourages potential adopters to ask questions, what does this mean? And that allows the adoption staff to explain, what the special circumstances are with that cat. And it's been extremely successful. So yes, we will adopt them out if they're on medication or, if there's some medical issues, as long as the quality of life is there.
Okay, and what do you do with semi-feral cats brought in, and what do you do about community cats?
Unfortunately, our area is a little behind times yet. We are not allowed to do any TNR programming or anything like that per ordinances in the area. So we created a farm cat program. So we just kind of find a loophole in the system and run with it in that direction.
All right. Here's another question. Financially, how did you offset the cost of preparing the cat for adoption, spay, neuter, deworming, shots, etc., with lower adoption fees? Our organization never breaks even on adoptions, just covering those items.
Even at the higher adoption fees, we didn't even come close to covering the costs in preparing the cat for adoption. We have a part-time vet on staff as well as vet techs on staff, And so we will never offset the costs of the spay-neuter vaccinations, et cetera. We are very fortunate to have a very supportive community. Over 50% of our income does come from contributions. It may be outright gifts or grants that we apply for, things of that nature, events, fundraising events, but we use the community support to help offset those costs.
Okay, this goes back to, I think, toward the beginning of the presentation. What is extended care?
So extended care, if we get a cat or dog that comes into our facility, and if they are fearful, the stress levels are really high and they're just having a hard time kind of acclimating, we will keep them in our care and work with them. If it's a couple of extra days or a week, or if there's a behavior issue that is something somebody on staff can work with and kind of make it less of a barrier for them, or kind of dig deeper into behaviors. We are able now to provide them with a longer stay if that is what they need. And also, if there's some medical concerns going on, or if they need to have an amputation, and they need to receive medical treatment for a longer period of time before they go up for adoption, we were able to do that.
Okay, anybody out there, if you have more questions, we still have a few minutes left, so you have some time to submit them. I'm curious to know, after the dramatic change between 2014 and 2015, what did the change look like between 2015 and 2016?
In 2016, our adoption rate on both cats and dogs has increased, obviously not quite as significantly, but the rate of cats and dogs adopted versus how many are brought in and not returned to their owners for both cats and dogs is in the 90s. Our live release rate for cats and dogs was 94% at the end of 2016. And so we are still seeing improvements. Even so far, 2017, we have decreasing numbers of euthanasia. So we are continuing to see improvements in what we do and how we do it. They're just not quite as dramatic.
Have any other sheltering organizations in your area followed your lead on adoption pricing?
That's a great question, because we have encouraged some of the shelters that we've worked with to do so. There's a little story. There is a similar sized, a little bit bigger shelter in our area that wanted to transfer cats to us. And we said sure. They couldn't. They had too many cats, couldn't get them adopted. They refused, however, to lower their adoption fees, and they might do a promotion, but the minimum fee would be $50. And so they wanted to transfer cats to us. We received 2 different transports from them, put them on the adoption floor. They were all adopted within days because we didn't have that high adoption fee. They haven't lowered their adoption fees, but some of the other shelters that we've talked to wanting to transfer, they're willing to drive 5 or 6 hours to bring cats in. The ASPCA wants to transfer cats from other shelters to us. And the first thing we say, well, have you tried lowering your adoption fees? Not sure if any of them have, but we're hoping they have, and hoping that we can share our success to maybe inspire some of those.
And one thing with, change is it's scary, but of all the changes that we have made, lowering our cat adoption fees, one, has been the absolute easiest to do, and second, the most rewarding.
Okay, we have time for just a couple more questions. To save money on adoption fees and the cost of care for the cats, did you opt not to auto-test for FELV, FIV?
We never automatically test prior to adoption. We offer that as an add-on. So we will offer it at the time of adoption to do an FELV, FIV test. And then if the cat would test positive, we then allow the adopters to either continue with the adoption or to maybe pick a different cat if that's what they would so choose.
And again, we did not test them prior to adoption before we made the adoption fee change. We've kept everything pretty much the same: spay, neuter, dewormer, vaccinations, etc. But it's never been our normal practice to do the FELV test.
Okay. What about microchipping? Is that something you do regularly?
We, at one point in time, we did microchip all of the cats prior to adoption, and we discontinued that process in 2014 before we changed the adoption fees. And we do offer the microchipping of cats, again, as an add-on, and we provide a significant discount for adopters to do the microchip. But with such a low return to owner rate on cats, we didn't feel as if it was having the effect, and we encourage people to get an ID tag for their cats as opposed to the microchip.
Okay. Well, we are just about out of time here, so I want to thank you, Amy and Maria, for sharing your incredible story, and thank you to all our participating shelters. If your shelter isn't already in the challenge and has the desire to save even just one more feline life, we welcome you to join us. To register, visit www.millioncatschallenge.org. If you have any questions, we are always here to help. You can reach us at info@millioncatchallenge.org. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day to be here, and have a great day.